Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. Hope everybody had a great weekend, as the Bucs could not hurt you on Sunday, as Scott Reynolds has told the Pewter people quite often, as the Bucs played on Thursday. So a bit of a mini bye for the Bucs, but let's get it rocking and rolling with a new week as we try to figure out how the Bucs can win down the stretch and stay in competition to win the NFC South. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is the face that runs the place at PewterReport.com, SR Scott Reynolds. Scott, you are back from a little short vacay.
Yeah.
How is morale?
It was great. I went to Siesta Key with my wife, Ashley, for the weekend. It was fun. We honeymooned there many moons ago, about 12 years ago. It was fun to go back there and get a little sunshine, and the weather was fantastic. Nothing against St. Petersburg and Clearwater, but the best beach in Florida is Siesta Key. It just is.
I think it got
water.
There's some type of like study or vote or whatever, and said that Siesta Key is like the best beach in Florida.
It is.
Or in like the U.S. So
phenomenal beach, good stuff. So we had fun. And it was also fun seeing the Atlanta Falcons lose, right, Buc fans? I mean, that was fun. The team that just beat you last week, and all of a sudden now, sky is falling in Atlanta. Brady Jarrett out for the year, torn ACL. Wow, that's not good news for the Falcons. And Desmond Ridder, is there a quarterback controversy now with Taylor Heineke? Tyler Heineke coming in and playing better than Desmond Ridder, who I guess fumbled again. So that's 6 fumbles now to start the season. So yeah, it's interesting times in the NFC South, just as bad as you felt when the Buccaneers lost to the Falcons and the Bills back-to-back weekends, Pewter people. The Atlanta Falcons fans now, even though the Falcons are 4-4, Matt, they're still tied for the lead in the NFC South right now with the New Orleans Saints. It's like the sky is falling in Atlanta right now. So they're a little, they're a little freaked out there in Atlanta, even though they're 4-4. So we've said all along, Matt, this division is going to come down to the wire. It's going to come down to the division games, and I don't think there's a division game now among any NFC South teams until November 26th. If I read Greg Allman's tweet right, so big week ahead with the Bucs and the Texans. We'll take a look at all the schedules for the Bucs, Falcons, Saints, and Panthers, who won their first game against the Texans this past Sunday. And but let's start with what happened here at the team complex day. There was a practice on Monday.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a, and I'll put in quotations, bonus practice today for the Buccaneers. And we did speak to Todd Bowles after, but yeah, I was out there at practice today. Obviously, everybody wants to know about Vita Vea, and because he did not play on Thursday. The good news is Vita Vea did participate in practice today. And again, we only get a certain allotted amount of time each day that we're at practice. So we mostly just see the guys like warm up and stretch, some calisthenics, and then a lot of special teams work. But Vita Vea was out there from the beginning, stretching, warming up, all that fun stuff. So that was the good news. The bad news was that there was no Tristan Wirfs out there today. He wasn't even, just a sideline spectator watching everybody else. So that's definitely going to be needing some monitoring as the week goes on. Also not participating, Keeft, which I thought was a little interesting. Kayvon Merriweather did not practice either. Obviously, he had missed some time anyway. Who am I missing? Oh, Logan Hall. So there's some differentiating reports. I'll just tell everybody right now, from what I saw, when everybody was stretching and warming up, Logan Hall was just standing there chilling by like where the defensive linemen kind of congregate after warm-ups and everything like that. So I don't know when other people got to look at Logan Hall, but he wasn't warming up or anything. He just had his jersey on and was standing there. So by my observations, one could conclude that him just standing there and not stretching, warming up, and everything else in between would mean that he is not participating the same way that Keeft was standing next to a coach and watch everyone stretch too. So that was my observation of it. You can check out our social media at Pewter Report, where we tweeted all of this out with photos and everything of that nature. But remember, Logan Hall was questionable in the last game because of a groin injury. So one of those things. I mean, even after practice, Todd Bowles was like, yeah, this is probably the healthiest we're going to be since the season began. And,
Yep.
even with all the Tristan Wirfs stuff and Vita Vea. So overall, I think good news that the Vita Vea is back. And I think Tristan will probably be one of those things where it's going to come down to later on in the week. And remember, it is a bonus practice. So they're not going to push any guys that don't necessarily need to practice out there. So
Yep.
yeah, those are the big names that people want to know.
Yeah, and I think the thing with Tristan Wirfs is, by all accounts, and we'll find out a little bit more as the week goes on. But with Tristan, right, it's a thigh injury,
Yeah.
probably a deep thigh bruise, thigh contusion is what they call it. Very painful to deal with.
Mhm.
But the fact that Tristan Wirfs played and continued to play throughout the game was a good sign. But that's something that nothing except for rest and some treatments, some massage and all of that is really going to help. So, I'm not worried about Tristan Wirfs. If he can play, he can play.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he wouldn't benefit from practice, Matt. I think everybody, benefits when they do participate, but
Yeah.
it's not like this guy needs it, right? I mean, he plays pretty well at left tackle. We've already figured that out this year. He's already an all-pro player at right tackle. I think he's on his way to becoming that in this year, his first year at left tackle. But at the same time, if Aaron Stanley's going to be out there at left guard, right? You're going to want to develop some more chemistry with him. And I thought Stinney played pretty well after looking at the tape. I think it kind of warranted the Pro Football Focus grade there. Not saying Matt Filer was, the root of all evil in that interior of the offensive line. But, Cody Mauch has got a long way to go. But this team is committed to playing him.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he's as bad at right guard as a rookie as Luke Edeke was at left guard as a rookie. So they're going to continue to ride with him. And Robert Hainsey, he is what he is. He's probably a backup center, ideally, than he is as a starter. But he's the guy for this year. But at left guard, if you can get an upgrade, if Stinney actually is an upgrade over Matt Filer, and I've kind of thought that, I called for Matt Filer to be benched after the Falcons game and either put Stinney or Nick Leverett in there. And obviously I understand why they don't want to put Nick Leverett in there. He's the backup center. If he gets hurt and then Hainsey gets hurt in the game, then you've got nobody snapping the ball. So I get why they wanted to go with Stinney over Leverett. And Matt, I thought that he played some really credible football out there for his first action in quite a while.
Yeah, I should note, too, that Matt Filer did not participate. So if that's the same case moving forward, then, Aaron Stinney would continue to be the starting left guard. And, I think Aaron Stinney is more than fine with what he did. I'm in full agreement with you that if you're pointing the finger at why the Bucs run game hasn't done well or why Baker Mayfield has gotten sacked more in the past couple of weeks, it's not like how many Bucs fans feel about Ryan Neal at safety. We're like, oh my God, he's a huge issue. He needs to be replaced. Matt Filer is not the Ryan Neal of the offense, and the offensive line specifically. But with that said, if you even get a minor increase with Aaron Stinney in there at left guard, which let's remember, he does have a history of coming in when the time is needed and playing well on big levels. And I think especially for offensive line where, yes, you watch the tape and stats aren't as quantifiable at offensive linemen as they are with a wide receiver or a running back. I think that history and playing with this unit, granted it's a new offense and everything like that.
Yeah.
I think Aaron Stinney can really take this offense. I'm not going to say to another level, but just again, the minor tweak that it needs. I think Aaron Stinney can really provide that. And also with the whole Nick Leverett thing, I watched a game on football where the third string center had to come in, who was just called up from the practice squad.
Yeah,
and it makes a big difference if you cannot snap the ball. So it cannot be overlooked that Nick Leverett, even though we didn't love how he snapped the football in training camp in the preseason, you do need that guy in case of emergency. And so that's why Nick Leverett isn't starting. But who knows? We got a couple more hours until the trade deadline. I doubt the Bucs are really going to do anything.
I agree.
But you never know. Maybe they'll try to booster their offensive line one way or another.
Yeah, and I think one thing, too, with Stinney is you saw some of those bigger runs towards the left, right? You saw the big run. Actually, both of the runs that Rachaad White had that were big. One of those got, I would say, called back, but the 26-yard run got turned into a 7-yard run due to the holding penalty from Trey Palmer down the field. But still, a 7-yard run. That's pretty good for any Buccaneers running back in this day and age, sad to say. Having said that, though, the screen pass, Matt, to the left, right? So I think Stinney has some ability that Matt Filer, age 31, just doesn't have. And so why not put a guy in there that's a little bit more athletic, a little bit more mobile, a few years younger, and Stinney, who is in a contract year, just like Filer is, right? Signed a 1-year deal. But yeah, I mean, I'm encouraged by what we've seen. Even if it's minute progress, it's still progress nonetheless. Let's see another week of Stinney, and then we'll draw some conclusion. It's about whether when Filer gets healthy, if he stays in the starting lineup and comes back in, or if they go with the hot hand, which may be Stinney after 2 weeks. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think a lot of it will be telling of what they can do against the Houston Texans, because you look at the post-bye, and it hasn't been good for the Bucs post-bye. They've lost 3 games in a row. They've yet to win since coming back from the bye. But I think for a lot of it too, divisional game against the Falcons, that's one of those things. Throw the record books out the window. It's a divisional game, unless you're really bad like the Panthers. But those 2 other games, the Lions and then Thursday against the Bills, very much felt, again, just because the amount of talent that both of their opponents have, it felt like the Bucs were going to be fighting an uphill battle to begin with. Whether it was running the football against the Lions, who had the top run-stopping defense in the league, or the Bills, what they've been able to do, especially at home, and especially when Josh Allen is really clicking at quarterback, which he was on Thursday.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about like litmus tests, measuring sticks, and all this fun stuff. I don't know if this is necessarily a litmus test, because it's the Houston Texans, who just lost to the previously winless Carolina Panthers. But I also think that for as much as we're all up in arms about certain things about really the offense, but the team in general, I think a lot of Bucs fans will kind of go, oh yeah, they're not as bad as we think when you play against another team that isn't like the elite of the elite. I wouldn't say the Bucs have had the toughest schedule, but they've had some more difficult opponents, and some of that is because, like the Eagles, for example, that's only because they came in first place in the NFC South last season, and the Eagles came in first place in the NFC East. So that obviously changes things as well.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be too down on the Bucs, but things are bad. They've lost 3 in a row.
Right.
But
Matt,
the division's still open.
You're right. They've lost 3 games in a row, but to me, again, and I said this after the Bucs lost to the Bills on Thursday night, get mad all you want about them losing the most recent game. I get that. You want your team to win, right? That's completely understandable. But the Falcons game, get more pissed off about that than the Bills game, because nobody picked the Bills to win on the Pewter Report staff. We all picked the Falcons to win. The Falcons at home in Raymond James Stadium, that was the winnable game. And in football, especially for a team that's not a Super Bowl contender, which the Buccaneers are not, and we'll see if they are a playoff team. I think they have the talent, and I think they should be a playoff team this year. That's why I picked them to go 9-8. Having said that, you have to win the winnable games, right? The winnable games are the games against lesser opponents, and then teams that you're kind of on par with. And I think the Bucs are on par with the Falcons. I thought they were on par with the Saints, right? And they split those games, and theoretically they should have been 2-0, in my opinion, in that. But the Lions, they're a better team. The Eagles, clearly a better team. The 49ers coming up, despite 3 losses in a row, I'm still, unless I see them slide on a similar scale with the Buccaneers with a couple more losses, which I don't think is going to happen. But 49ers, that's probably going to be a loss. The Bills was going to be a loss. We're talking about teams that are better than the Buccaneers. And it doesn't mean that you can't upset those teams. Upsets happen every week in the NFL. It'd be nice if the Buccaneers maybe joined that party and got an upset. Maybe that happens against the Jacksonville Jaguars, in a bit. But to me, Matt, it's all about winning the winnable games. And you look at the schedule. We'll get to this on the other side of roll call in about 4 minutes. But we'll talk about the Bucs schedule. We'll look at the other schedules too from the NFC South, just so everybody has kind of a full picture of where the Bucs stand with their counterparts in the division. But there's a lot of winnable games, Matt, coming down the stretch here. And I think that it presents the Buccaneers some opportunities here.
Yeah, no question about it. I think, like we talked about, the next 2 games are kind of must-win games for the Bucs, just in terms of, again, the name of the game is keeping on pace with the rest of the NFC South. And the unfortunate thing for all these teams is that it's not just a 2-team race; it's a 3-team race at the moment. So it's like, oh, well, the Falcons lost. That's great for the Bucs, and it is. but the Saints also won
Right.
and beat the Colts, and and put them back into the picture as well. Granted, the Bucs do have that tiebreaker
Yep.
at the moment against the Saints, which will be more important as the season goes on. But you're not
Right.
just competing against one team; you're competing against two. But let's get to some super chats. Starting out
appreciate
with
it. Thank you.
Cameron Page. Thank you, Cameron, for the $4.99 super chat. Who says, "Could you guys break down how much we are paying players that aren't even playing for us this year,
Yep.
and how it hits the cap space?"
Yep, got it right here. So Tom Brady not playing for the Buccaneers or anybody this year,
Yeah.
$35 million and some change, or like really 35.1 million. So out of the Buccaneers' total salary cap, Tom Brady not playing, accounting for 35.1 million. Donovan Smith, who was released this offseason, nearly $8 million worth of dead cap space, 7.95 million. Levante David, he had some voidable years in his previous contract. So even though he was re-signed, the Bucs still have to account for the money that was already paid to Levante in his previous contract, but was not allocated in terms of salary cap space. That's why those voidable years, you have to pay some dead cap money, and the Buccaneers did that. Levante, aside from what he's making this year, which is about 4.5 million, is also on the cap for 6.855 million worth of dead cap money. Leonard Fournette, 5 million in dead cap space. Akeem Hicks, 4.9 million because of that voidable year. Same with Shaq Mason, 4.3 million. Cam Brate, just under 4 million and 3.955. Julio Jones, again, voidable year, right? You sign a player and you want to reduce his 1 year initial cap hit, like Julio Jones, who was signed to essentially a 1 year deal, but it was a 2 year deal because it was a voidable year, to reduce his salary cap impact last year, Matt. And Julio's still on the books for 3.5 million. Will Golston, same thing as Levante, 2.4 million in leftover cap money, but he's under contract now for another $1 million, having re-signed with the team. Ryan Suckup, 750,000. Deidre Sanat, 652,000. Pat O'Connor, 450,000. Jalen Darden, 348,000 and $950. And that's pretty much it. A couple $100,000 here or there, but it's a lot of money. It's where, I think we're talking around $75 million worth of dead cap space. And, Matt, this was the year. This is the plan. Go cheap this year, bite the bullet, have more cap room next year, about $62 million, which they're going to need because they got a lot of free agents coming up, a lot of big names. Antoine Winfield, Devin White, Baker Mayfield, Levante David, Ryan Neal. Some of those guys aren't going to be back. Plus, you want to pay Tristan Wirfs. That will actually lower his cap value next year because he's on the books for over $18 million with his fifth-year option. So the $62 million, it sounds like a lot. It's going to get spent pretty quickly. But the Bucs are going to have some more flexibility. They're not going to be as tight against the cap as they were this year. And then the year after that is going to be even better. So they're going to start to get out of this salary cap hell pretty quickly starting next year, Matt.
Yeah, and this was all about ripping the Band-Aid off because this day was coming one day or another.
Yep.
And honestly, you might as well get it done now, especially in this season after Tom Brady's no longer the quarterback, because the Bucs, could have kept delaying it, and they like to kick the can down the road with some of the void years. And, it was worth it with winning the Super Bowl and re-signing guys to make another Super Bowl run the following season and so on. And honestly, if you're going to, better not to prolong it when you can just rip the Band-Aid off now, get it done with. And why not do it in this season where it's like, oh, well, we don't know exactly what we're going to get from the offense because it's new quarterback with Baker Mayfield. Because in a different scenario, the Bucs, and I know this quarterback draft class, the Bucs weren't really in a position to get Will Levis or some of the other guys. But, what if they ended up drafting a quarterback and he worked out? It's like, wow, this quarterback, he could be the future of the Bucs, and he's great with all these weapons. But oh, wait, now you have no more money to re-sign Mike Evans and sign that extension to Antoine Winfield Jr. and Tristan Wirfs and things of that nature. So best to do it now. It's also best to do it right now. We're gonna do some roll call, baby. That's right, Pewter people. We love interacting with you, the Pewter people, as much as we possibly can. We have so much fun doing this show every day, the Pewter Game Day show as well, because you guys bring great thoughts, opinions, facts, and questions too. So one of the fun ways we like to interact with everybody is we do roll call, every Monday at 4:20, or sometimes if we're in the middle of something, 2 or 3 minutes late. But yeah, pretty much all we do is today I'm gonna go on a rant about something I've been thinking about with the Bucs. And in the meantime, start putting your location on the screen, and we'll throw it up so everybody else can see it too. So
there we go. We've got some super chats we'll get to after roll call,
yes,
but let's hit
it. We will get to the super chat as well. So I think a big topic of discussion since Thursday night's game between the Bucs and the Bills, and kind of moving forward, I asked Todd Bowles about it today, is the team going up tempo. Well, it's two things really. It's the Bucs going more up tempo, and just the offense continuously saying, "Oh, we're so close. We're so close. We're one play away." And I'll start off with the up tempo thing because it really reared its ugly head against the Bills with the fourth quarter. You're down 2 scores. They did score the touchdown, so credit to the Bucs for scoring that touchdown. But it took you 17 plays, and it took about 7 minutes off the clock. Yeah. You had the ball with 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. You finally scored with, I think, like 2:40 left on the clock or whatever it was. It just took way too much time. And that is a situation where you needed to go up tempo. But I think even larger than the picture of just, oh, well, you're down 2 scores, you got to play faster. Things are not working really in any capacity for the Bucs offense. It's highly driven around Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Teams are taking away Mike Evans, and it feels like the Bucs don't have another answer. They cannot run the football. Baker Mayfield has not played as well after the bye than he was playing before the bye. I mean, anyone that watched any of the Bucs games can figure that stuff out. So when you hit a rut like the Bucs have, by the way, they're averaging 12 points per game in their 3-game losing streak. When you have an offense that is struggling the way that the Bucs are struggling, you got to mix it up one way or another, whether it's running some plays that actually worked, whether it's making some changes to the offensive line or anywhere really, which maybe we'll see that with Aaron Stinney. Or another thing you could do is go up tempo, go no huddle, keep the the defense on their toes, keep those same players on the field to tire them out a little bit. This offense needs a spark, and I really think up tempo could be one of those things. And that's why I absolutely despised the comments that Todd Bowles said the day after the game on Friday.
Yeah.
Where he's like, we thought about going up tempo, but that's where a number of the penalties have come from. First of all, the Bucs are committing penalties everywhere.
Right.
Now, whether you're going up tempo or not. So I don't necessarily buy that. And
Agreed.
2, I don't care if it's, a new offensive line or young players at wide receiver. To say that you can't go up tempo because you're worried about your guys jumping off sides or committing a pre-snap penalty or not lining up correctly.
Right.
That's an issue for a freaking high school team. For a high school team, not an NFL team with players that get paid good money to play professional football. You're telling me you can't go up tempo because of that specifically? I don't buy that. I think this team needs a lot of changes, and going up tempo would be something to really, switch it up a little bit. So let's fast forward to today. Todd Bowles, we kind of went back to that situation with should they have gone up tempo late in the game, and this is what Todd Bowles had to say.
Giving you more time when you got the ball back?
Yeah, we've talked about that. We always wanted to go quicker. We knew we were down 2 scores and had to go quicker. There were some penalties involved and some things that we got to get communicated, but we definitely want to be faster.
Yeah,
you want to be faster. Prove it.
The penalties were on the Bills on 4th down. It's like those were the 2 penalties that I remember. Maybe there was a Buccaneer penalty in there too, but I mean, it was the 2 4th down penalties by Buffalo that extended that drive.
Yeah.
And I mean, it took the Buccaneers throwing a touchdown pass to Mike Evans on another 4th down for them to finally get in the end zone. I mean, it seemed like that drive took like 2 quarters, not just 7 minutes.
Yeah.
It was exhausting to watch. And I think that's where, listen, I'm fine with Todd Bowles being hands off and being completely giving Dave Canales complete autonomy of the offense. That's fine. That can work. We saw that with Byron Leftwich and Bruce Arians being the offensive guys and Todd Bowles being the defensive guy.
Yep.
And Bruce trusts Todd and all that. Same thing with John Gruden and Monty Kiffin, 2 completely different people. Gruden had nothing to do with the defense, completely hands off. That's fine. But Todd Bowles, your job is the head coach as well as the defensive play caller. You have the right and the obligation to tell your offensive coordinator, hurry up, because it's all about game management, right? Like you got to sit there and get on the headset or walk down there and say, Dave, like we're snapping the ball with 2 to 3 seconds left in the play clock. We should be snapping the ball with 12 to 13 seconds left in the play clock. We got to get the plays in faster. We got to get to the line, maybe do a sugar huddle rather than an actual huddle. Sugar huddles where you're all kind of standing about where you need to be. And then Baker's making the call out there, right at the line of scrimmage and get the snaps going because, Matt, the defense did their job. They used the timeouts. They had the 2-minute warning, which aided them. They got the ball back, but they got the ball back with 21 seconds left or whatever it was and no timeouts. Imagine, Matt, if they had 1 minute and 21 seconds left, right? Then maybe you're not throwing a Hail Mary. Maybe you're throwing a 20-yard pass into the end zone. It's a much easier throw to make, and it's not a gimme by any means because the Bucs struggle getting touchdowns, but it increases your chances of winning and maybe going on a drive and maybe you get down inside the 5-yard line and you have 2 or 3 plays, right? That beats having 2 or 3 plays at the 50-yard line.
Yeah, and I think, again, the bigger picture, it's not like other things have been working for this offense. I mean, their highest scoring game was 26 against the Saints, and let's not forget that 10 points were gift-wrapped to the Bucs with starting at the 20. So they really haven't had an efficient offensive game just yet. But let's keep the Super Chats rolling. Thank you to Bucs Basement for the $5 Super Chat, who says, Bucs in third place, deservedly so. I don't think the Bucs are likely to win against the Texans and Titans. We all know how Bowles makes rookie quarterbacks look. Yeah, that took a bad turn a season ago or 2 seasons ago, whatever it was, where sometimes, as great as this defense can be, it does leave the door open for certain things, especially if you can pick up the Bucs blitzes. And
Brock Purdy, right? I mean, he made him, the Bucs made Brock Purdy look really good, and Brock Purdy did look really good up until recently.
Yeah.
But, Matt, C.J. Stroud has looked really good. Granted, they didn't get he didn't have a touchdown pass last week, but 9 touchdowns, only 1 interception so far in his NFL career. He was the 2nd overall pick. Bryce Young, of course, went to Carolina, number 1 overall, but he's been sacked 15 times, but he's completed 60% of his passes. He's not the most accurate quarterback, only thrown for 1,800 yards. He's not like a prolific passer, but 9 touchdowns, 1 interception for any rookie quarterback. That's good. That should have the Bucs' attention.
I just really hope that the Bucs eventually play tighter coverage at the front of the line of scrimmage, because you could say you don't want to allow the big play all you want in soft zone. You're still allowing the big play and then hiding it as, it was a busted coverage and miscommunication. I don't really care. You're still letting up the big play, so try something that's actually going to help you
Matt,
a little bit more.
I hate to put you on the spot like this, but answer me 2 questions. How many interceptions does Jamel Dean have this year?
A donut. 0.
Okay. How many interceptions does Carlton Davis have this year?
He is actually, you and I have the same amount as Carlton Davis.
That's exactly right. He also has 0.
Scott, can I follow up with with another question?
Yes.
How many interceptions does defensive tackle veteran Will Golston have this season?
He has 1. Because he was closer to the ball than those guys are, even at the line of scrimmage. If you want interceptions, right, you want to be able to jump the routes. And I understand Jamel Dean maybe could have had a pick 6 opportunity if he'd been maybe a step, further, a step closer to the target there, right around the goal line on that 4th down. But that's what I'm saying, Matt, is you got to be in position. You got to play tighter coverage with less cushion to put yourself in position to get those interceptions. You can't be sitting here as a coach crying and screaming, we need more interceptions, and then have your cornerbacks playing 5 and 7 yards off. Yeah. It's not going to happen. You've got to play tighter coverage, and you got to take some chances. And you have 2 big, physical, long cornerbacks that can match up against bigger receivers, right? That have enough speed to hang with some of the smaller receivers and mug them a little bit. So I just don't get it. I don't understand why, especially early on in games, the Buccaneers, and we've seen it on first drives especially, they come out in this soft zone and they allow quarterbacks to get into rhythm and pick apart the Bucs defense. So we have another super chat, Matt.
We do. Thank you to Thomas Pelakudis for the $5 super chat, who says, would it not make sense to go get Chase Young if they're in a win now situation? Thank you for all you do, guys. Well, Thomas, thank you very much for the super chat. Thank you for the comment. Appreciate you watching the show. it's funny. Bowles talked about how last week was like the first time that he wasn't really happy with the production from the outside linebackers. But overall, I think those adjustments can be made in-house, whether it's playing Anthony Nelson a little bit more than Joe Tryon-Shoyinka or obviously Yaya Diaby. They spent a 3rd-round pick on him. So he's definitely a guy that you want to get more reps. They're pretty stacked at outside linebacker. You got Marquise Watts in the practice squad. Cam the Thrill Gill gets a couple of snaps each game. So while it would be fun for the Bucs to make a trade, and Chase Young is obviously a flashy name that people know, I don't think if they are going to make a trade, it would be for anyone at outside linebacker.
I agree. Plus, he is going to be entering his, I think they turned down the 5th-year option, so there's no 5th-year option to pick up. So you have to acquire Chase Young, knowing that you have to re-sign him, and probably to a mega deal, considering he was, a top 5 pick, 1st overall pick, or 2nd overall pick. Sorry, 2nd overall pick in 2020 out of Ohio State. So he's going to command a huge chunk of change, and you have to be prepared to say, we're going to pay him that money, and then where are you going to find the money for Antoine Winfield and Mike Evans? Right, and Levante David, and maybe Baker Mayfield, or another quarterback if you have to go out and get another quarterback. So 5 sacks this year. It's a rebound year. Last year, obviously, he got injured, only played in 5 games. But the year prior to that, he played in 9, only had a sack and a half. His best season was his rookie season, 7.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries. It just has not been nearly as productive, right? And the other thing, too, is he's on the trading block for a reason, Matt. He's not helping the Washington Commanders win enough games. And so to me, I'm not sure that he's the right answer for the Buccaneers right now. And then you're going to have to give up a draft pick and then pay the guy a bunch of money. In Madden football, it makes sense. Make the trade, whatever, but not in real life.
And I also feel like there's probably a reason why Washington didn't pick up that 5th-year option. Like if he was so
not
productive.
sold. Yeah.
Thank you to Paul, aka Florida Dreamhouse, our main man, with the $5 super chat. Good question. What is the Bucs record at this point if BA was still head coach? SR has been very fair in his Baker Mayfield analysis. Cry more, Traskaholics and Traskholes. Well, I mean, I think the easy thing to say would be like, oh, with Bruce Arians coaching, the Bucs would have definitely beat the Falcons and they would have kept it closer against the Lions or whatever it is. But the reality is, I mean, as great as a coach Bruce Arians is and was, and I'm not knocking what he's done. He's a 2-time coach of the year, won a Super Bowl for the Bucs. I mean, the Bucs got upset in some games too. They lost to the Bears infamously on that Thursday night game. They lost to Washington on the road. So, Bruce Arians wasn't prone to losing in upset games too.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is, and again, love Bruce. Everything you said is exactly right, Matt. Not trying to detract from his record whatsoever. But which Bruce Arians are we talking about here? Are we talking about the 7-9 with Jameis Winston Bruce Arians? Or are we talking about the Bruce Arians who inherited Tom Brady in free agency?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And won a Super Bowl and then went 13-4 with Tom Brady. So 2 distinctly different quarterbacks, right? With Jameis Winston, Bruce was a 7-9 coach. So is that the Bruce Arians the Bucs would be getting this year? Don't know. Tom Brady makes any head coach look good. Just ask Bill Belichick, right?
Yeah.
So
overrated.
Yeah, so I love Bruce, but I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if this team is 3-4, if they're 4-3, if they're 5-2, or I don't know. Can you do a better job than Todd Bowles? I don't know. I'm not sure.
And the other thing, if we're really combing through this, it would be like, oh, well, Baker's in the Bruce Arians offense versus this new offense. Does he end up throwing more interceptions or less, or do they end up scoring more points? That's a long way of saying that we don't know. But what I do know is that the best energy drink that you can find on the market is Celsius Energy Drinks, the official sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast and pewterreport.com. Check out all of their great flavors, because I do know that they have a variety of fantastic flavors, whether it's their newest one, the Cosmic Vibe, or the Arctic Vibe. Sparkling orange is great. Strawberry lemonade is awesome. Sparkling wild berry, fantastic as well. There's no sugar. There's no post-energy drink crash or jitters that you might get with another product out there. So if you need to know where to pick one up, go to the Celsius store locator on their website, punch in your address, and it'll tell you the closest geographical location where you can pick one up. It could be your Walmart, Target, 7-Eleven, maybe a health and fitness store, or maybe it could be your bodega.
Bodega.
Very nice, very nice. And of course, if you want to start getting them in bulk, which I would recommend because of all the great flavors, get that variety pack. Because variety is the spice of life. You go to Amazon, click on the subscribe and save, and you can have it sent to your place of residence whenever you want. You're in charge of it. It could be a week, month, quarterly, yearly. You make the choice. Just make Celsius your number one pick. Celsius, the official sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast.
I'll say this too. If you haven't tried Celsius, right? You've heard us every day. We do this. They're the title sponsor, the presenting sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast, the official energy drink of Pewter Report. What are you waiting for? Just try one. Go to Celsius.com, click on store locator. They're distributed just about countrywide now. So you can go to any of the convenience stores around the country, just about in this day and age, and grab a Celsius. Try one. See if you like it. Matt, I thought you did a great job with roll call. Just want to give a quick shout out to a couple of people here that are watching us from around Florida and around the country. We really appreciate Tom Bucs fan. Got the first start. He was early for roll call. Crossville, Tennessee. We appreciate that.
Yeah, very cool.
And another Buccaneer fan outside the state of Florida. In Houston, Texas, baby. Big Sack. Are you going to be at the game? They're coming right to your neighborhood here on Sunday. And then we've got some fantastic fans from outside of the state of Florida and the country. Benveld, the Netherlands. Arnoud, we appreciate you very much for tuning in over in the Netherlands. And also, too, Edward Claringbold from Whitehorse, Yukon, Canada. A lot of Canadian fans in here today. Appreciate you Buck fans up north, eh? And then from Florida, we've got a guy who is at Busch Gardens right now, Jeffrey.
I love
waiting in line for those rides, and maybe Kumba, maybe Montu.
Yeah,
Shikara.
honestly, that's a great idea. If you're going to be at Busch Gardens, I haven't been in a while, but you know, most parks and stuff, it takes a while to get on these rides. Watch the Pewter Report podcast while you're waiting online. I think that's a great idea. But yeah, shout out to all of our fans, great people. Shout out to Vice. Thank you for the $10 super chat. If you have a follow-up comment, feel free to put it in the chat, and we will put it up on the screen. Moving on. Thank you to Min Centrin Bailey. Any relation to Bailey Adams? Says, and thank you for the $9.99 super chat. Says, I'm the biggest Bucs fan in Philly. I've never been to a Bucs home game. Why is it always so many visiting fans at the Bucs home games? Well, appreciate you tuning in from Philly.
Yep.
Obviously, not the best territory to be a Bucs fan, given the rivalry between these two teams. I think it really simply comes down to is that really the state of Florida, but very much Tampa. It's very much a transplant city. You have a lot of people that move in from different parts of the country. Northeast, obviously, is pretty big with that. And people still keep their fandom. So, you know, when their team comes into town, they want to go see them. And, you know, it's not really anything on the Bucs. Just there's a long, long history of the Philadelphia Eagles compared to the Bucs or some of the other teams that, you know, that come to town and play.
I also think, too, a lot of Buccaneer fans know that no Tom Brady this year, right? Chances of the Buccaneers going to the Super Bowl, going to the playoffs, the enthusiasm's been dampened. I mean, that's just call it like we see it. That's reality. We love you, Pewter people. We're not, you know, not bad-mouthing any Buccaneer fans. But let's face it, Matt, there were some bandwagoners that jumped on when Tom Brady came to this team several years ago. And that's okay. We love them too. And hopefully some have stayed around for the ride. But at the same time, there's the thing called inflation, right? Cash money talks. And when you have fans, right, from other teams, whether it's Philadelphia, whether it's Detroit, right, they look at the schedule and they say, holy smokes, do I want to, you know, maybe wake up to 40 degrees, you know, in Detroit, you know, or do I want to get on to Tampa, Florida? So it's a great place to vacation. And you've got teams that have fans, Matt, that they look at Florida and they want to plan a vacation down here. And they're willing to pay not face value for tickets, premium prices, right? Premium prices for tickets to see their team play the Buccaneers in Tampa. And money talks sometimes, you know. So we don't like to see it. You know, the Giants or the Eagles game was one thing. The Lions game was another. There's a lot of Falcons fans here, which that's maybe a little bit more like unforgiving. But, it's a sign of the times right now. And I think the more the Buccaneers win, the more Buccaneer fans will be in the stadium.
Yeah. Yeah. Winning cares a lot,
It does.
for sure. We got $2 super chat from Easy the Great. Thank you very much, Easy the Great. If you have a follow-up comment, please feel free to throw it in the chat, and we will put it on the screen. And Les Evans with a $10 super chat. Sticking with the Eagles, says, make a deal with the Eagles for power running back Rashad Penny. He isn't being used by the Eagles, and he's healthy. Les, thank you for the super chat. This is something that we've talked about before on the show. And ideally, it makes a ton of sense. Rashad Penny spent a lot of time with the Seahawks, where Dave Canales obviously comes from, so he would know this offense.
Right.
Obviously, the Bucs have had their struggles in the run game, and they could really use an RB2 after Rashad White at RB1, because we know it's not Keyshawn Vaughn. They're not playing Sean Tucker, and Chase Edmonds didn't really have the most groundbreaking return to playing on Thursday Night Football, to coming back with the Bucs. The only thing I'll say about this is, in a perfect world, it'd be great for the Bucs. Spend a day 3 pick where they're not losing too much draft capital and bring in very much a need for this team at running back. But it takes 2 to tango. And yes, the Eagles have plenty of good running backs right now, but that's why you build depth. If something happens to one of those running backs, then Rashad Penny is suiting up every single game.
That's right.
So for the Eagles, are you just going to willy-nilly give away a running back for a day 3 draft pick just for the heck of it? I don't necessarily think so. But if I were the Bucs, I would definitely try to pursue that. But it would be.
I would too. I've heard that they're not interested in Rashad Penny. They've done some scouting with him, and they've looked at his preseason with the Eagles. It was not pretty. I mean, he's 4th string running back for a reason. If he was as good as DeAndre Swift, he'd be splitting carries. If he was better than Boston Scott or Kenneth Gainwell, he'd be ahead of them on the depth chart. That's not the case. But as you said, Matt, Eagles prime for another Super Bowl run. They want to keep that depth in case they need it. I remember talking to Jason Light in 2020 and 2021, and he says, I got guys calling me, every day, are these players available? Nope, absolutely not. Not getting rid of any of our depth. And it paid off, Matt, because we talked about it at the beginning of the show. Aaron Stinney stepped in and helped save the day at right guard when Alex Kappa broke his leg at Washington. So can't fault the Eagles for not wanting to deal him, but I don't think the Bucs are going to be buyers either in that particular market.
Let's also not forget real quick the depth. Again, that 2020 Super Bowl run, the NFC Championship game, they were down to their 3rd and 4th string safeties out there winning the game. So depth became very important once again. We got Mason DeBoard with a $10 super chat. Appreciate you, Mason. Thanks. Says, as much as I love Mike Evans, it's just really annoying if they just let him walk after the season when they possibly could have gotten some reasonable compensation.
Yeah. Well, if they do let Mike Evans walk, right, whatever that number is, if it's too much money for the Buccaneers to want to absorb, then you're looking at a situation where not next year, but in 2025, the Buccaneers will likely get a 3rd round draft pick, compensatory pick, if it's a sizable contract. So it's not like they're not going to get anything for him. They could even get something for Devin White. Devin White signs, $12, $14, $15 million elsewhere. I'm not sure who would pay that, but just saying that when you let free agents go, if they sign elsewhere and it's a big money deal, there's an offset there in terms of how much money you're spending in free agency on new free agents as well. But there's going to be a chance they're going to get maybe a 3rd or 4th round pick for Mike, depending on those offsets in free agency. It won't be for this year per se, but it'll be down the road.
Yeah, I think that's important to point out, because it's not like in other sports, like the NBA, for example. Teams would be more inclined to trade there, and Mike Evans is not disgruntled, but teams in the NBA would be more inclined to trade their disgruntled superstar, because if he walks in free agency, you're not getting anything in return. Where if you trade him, then you can get those draft picks. Where the NFL, you can still get a comp pick. And like we said, it's still going to be wait and see with the Mike. They may re-sign Mike after the season, but that's why the rest of the season really is going to be super important for a number of reasons, including the greatest offensive player of all time.
Yeah, that's right.
In team history.
Lucas Pettis with the $1.99 super chat. Thank you, Lucas. Who do you think they bench first, Neal or Mayfield? I would have benched Ryan Neal weeks ago, but I don't think they're going to. Maybe they'll get to a point at 2 or 3 more games of giving up touchdowns. Maybe they have to at that point in time. I don't know. Baker Mayfield, who do you bench him for? Obviously Kyle Trask, right? I don't know that the wheels would have to fall off the wagon. They'd have to lose the next 3 games. Really, just the ship is sinking before they turn to Kyle Trask, because I don't think Trask is going to give them any better chance of winning. Maybe he wins a game or 2 down the stretch, but I don't think that you want to turn the ship over to him right now, and he's going to lead you to the playoffs. He doesn't have the experience, the escapability from Baker that we see out of Baker Mayfield. I don't know that he's an upgrade over Baker Mayfield. I think that you would get probably the same level of play at best, if not a little bit worse, just due to the lack of experience. So I don't think, if you're asking me which one would they bench first, I think it would be, and it should be, Ryan Neal.
I don't think Baker's played poorly enough to warrant
Agreed.
the coaches being like, all right, we got to make a move. We got to do this. Because it's a little bit of everything from everybody.
That's right. Let's take a look at the upcoming schedule here for the Buccaneers.
Yeah.
And this is where we're going to try to find some wins for the Buccaneers, the topic for today's show, right? It's like you look at Houston. I thought for sure they would be 4-3. I thought they were going to beat the Panthers, and sometimes on any given Sunday, right, Matt, it happens. But you look at these next 2 games, and yes, I know Will Levis threw 4 touchdowns. I remember Marcus Mariota throwing 4 touchdowns too in his debut. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. Where's Marcus Mariota now, right? He flamed out as a starting quarterback a couple of times in the league. So before we anoint Will Levis for doing anything other than having a great debut, we have to wait and see. And the Buccaneers will be facing Will Levis in his 3rd start, more than likely. And that will give the Buccaneers a couple of weeks worth of film on Will Levis too.
Yes.
And last week, the Falcons did not have that advantage, and they paid for it.
Yeah, and I think especially with the Titans, they play the Steelers on Thursday Night Football, and the Steelers are highly regarded as having one of the best defenses in the NFL. And I know they play a little bit of a different style than obviously what Tampa Bay does, but the more tape you can get on a rookie quarterback, the better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think these are 2 must wins, gotta have it type of games. The Bucs can't mess around anymore.
Right.
So yeah, you want to chalk them up as wins. I mean, you can't guarantee anything with the Bucs right now. At least
that's right.
Doing offensively, and that's what is frustrating about. You look at that matchup with San Fran. The 49ers are reeling right now, and for everything you want to say about Brock Purdy, like their defense has not looked great the past 2 weeks, going up against the Vikings. And then obviously Joe Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So you could think, oh, hey, we could probably pull one over on San Francisco because they've been struggling lately. But when the offense just flat out isn't scoring points at all, you're not going to take advantage of a team that struggled on the defensive side of the football. So yeah, I think best case scenario for the Bucs is you get to 5-5 after week 11. Losing to San Fran and winning those 2 games against Houston.
Right. And then you're looking at a 7-game stretch, right? The Colts, I believe that's winnable. The Panthers, winnable. The Falcons, I think the Buccaneers and Falcons are right on even schedule with each other in terms of their talent level, et cetera. Right. Like you said, toss up, right? So you return the favor in Atlanta. That's a winnable game. Green Bay, a little bit of a wild card. I think they're a better team, but how's the weather going to be, right? I mean, that's an advantage Green Bay there, but on paper, look at the rosters, maybe advantage Tampa Bay. I'm still going to say that's a winnable game, though. Jacksonville is going to be a real challenge. They're on par with the Detroit Lions, in my opinion, with how well they're playing right now, offensively and defensively. So that's going to be a tough one, right? Then you host the Saints, team you swept last year. You already beat this year. For whatever reason, Todd Bowles kind of owns the Saints. He's 3-0 against them. That's going to be an important game, right? It took the Bucs until week, 17 last year against the Panthers to win the division. It feels like it's going to come down to week 17 again. It might come down to week 18, right? And that's Carolina, and they probably won't have anything to play for at that stretch. So there's a lot of wins to be had there, but Tampa Bay's got to do a better job of winning the winnable games. And maybe you take that L in San Fran, you take the L at home against Jacksonville, you still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 winnable games down the stretch here out of these remaining contests. And you're probably not going to win all the winnable games, but if you get 7 more wins, right now you're looking at a 10-win season. And I don't think that that's going to happen. I think it's going to probably be 8 or 9, but there's an opportunity here, Matt, to really go on a run at some point. But I think you're right. The key is winning the next two and losing at San Francisco, or maybe you upset the 49ers and you make up for a loss at Houston or at home versus Tennessee. But somehow, some way, 2-1 the next 3 weeks, you get off the losing streak and you're 5-5 with 7 games remaining. I think that's critical, Matt.
And it's crazy that we're kind of thinking this after this team has just lost 3 games in a row. But let's just say they end up with 10 wins. Sure, you still want to win the division because you get that home playoff game, which obviously is advantageous. But if you get 10 wins, there's probably a likelihood that you're getting one of the wild card spots, which is something that like none of us really thought of at the beginning of the season. And I know they had a rough start to the season, but unfortunately, Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles and he's going the season. But the Vikings were one of those teams that seemed like they were going in the right direction and could have picked up a wild card spot. That's another team you can kind of de facto eliminate because of the injury to Kirk Cousins.
And the Falcons, looking at the Falcons schedule real quick, Falcons might do the Bucs a favor in a sense and beat the Minnesota Vikings and kind of start them on the downward spiral. Wouldn't be surprised if Ryan Tannehill gets traded from the Titans, though, to the Vikings. We'll see. Falcons have an admittedly easier schedule. 1-7 Arizona on the docket. They do have a little stretch here. They have to play the New Orleans Saints twice. So are they going to sweep the Saints? Are they going to get swept? Are they going to split with the Saints? That's an interesting situation to watch in the South. They're playing the Jets. They've got the Colts. They got certainly winnable games against Carolina and Chicago coming up. Pretty much on par with the Bucs schedule, maybe even a tick easier than Tampa Bay, right? But now with Grady Jarrett out, Drake London with a hurt groin, maybe a quarterback controversy in Atlanta, we'll see. Right now, let's look at the Panthers real quick here. So you've got, again, can this team build some momentum? That they have a couple of winnable games here. I don't think that's the Colts record. I think I typed that in incorrectly, but Chicago is certainly 2-6. But so you've got a much tougher stretch for the Panthers here after a couple winnable games. Dallas is certainly mighty. Then they have 3 straight road games there that just might, kill the Cats, in my opinion. And then you're ending up playing at Jacksonville and then Tampa Bay. I don't see a lot of wins on this one, if not for the next couple of weeks here. But then, Matt, you look at the Saints, right? And how they finish up. You've got the Bears, Minnesota, as you mentioned, struggling with the quarterback situation now with Kirk Cousins out for the year with a torn Achilles. They play Detroit down the stretch. They have to play Atlanta twice. They got to play Tampa Bay again. The Rams, I think, out there in LA.
To be honest with you, Scott, if I'm a Bucs fan and I'm looking at this 3-team race in the NFC South, I think I would be most worried about the Saints because of like the schedule you just laid out there.
Yeah.
And the fact that like the Saints offense has looked abysmal.
Yeah.
But it seems like they're at least starting to trend in the right direction a little bit. So like if their offense ever figures it out, I still think their defense can do enough to keep them in a lot of games. And I think the Falcons are the most, I mean, we just saw it against the Titans. Like that's a game that they probably should have won against a rookie in his first career start. And, they fell on their faces. The Falcons, in my opinion, are the most likely to, lose games that they should win, where figure it out on offense could potentially be the most dangerous for the Bucs. So the best thing would be if the Falcons beat the Saints and then the Saints and then the Falcons just kind of implode on their own against the rest of the easy schedule that they play. But it's not going to be easy for the Bucs by any means. I mean, you look at the Saints, those first 2 games, Chicago and Minnesota, those should be 2 wins for the Saints right there. So definitely quite difficult, but that's why I also think, like it was last season,
that's right.
It'll come down to December of this season.
Yeah.
And January of technically next year, as Jeff Moore says, week 17 or 18 in the NFC South will determine the champ. It most likely will.
Yep. M. McKinnon, 88, $9.99 super chat. Thank you so much. From North Carolina here. First time being live. That's awesome. You came on the right day, man. Mondays are always the best day with roll call and all that. So appreciate it. Been listening since Mark Cook back when you would suspend him for being captain interruption. Oh, yeah, man. I was just thinking about Mark Cook the other day.
The other day on Thursday when the Bucs played. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Any pass rushers we could get to light a fire under JTS? I think benching JTS, putting him in the rotation, and starting Anthony Nelson is the move I would make if I'm Todd Bowles. Even if you play him around the same amount of snaps, just send a message to JTS saying, not good enough. What you're doing is not good enough. And I'm going to go with the guy that's going to give me a little bit more steady effort. Maybe not as athletically gifted as JTS, but Anthony Nelson is a gritty player that 3.5 sacks last year and with 3 forced fumbles, right? So five sacks, 5.5 sacks.
Vita Vea led the team in sacks, but at outside linebacker, Anthony Nelson led the outside linebacker room. Yeah,
a couple fumble recoveries. So I would definitely start Anthony Nelson now. Meets McGee with a $10 super chat. What has Devin White shown us in the past 5 seasons that he's impact football games minus the Super Bowl postseason? He should not be blowing coverages in a defense he's been in since the beginning. I agree wholeheartedly. I don't think he's going to be back next year. If I'm Jason Light and I get a phone call wanting Devin for a 4th or 5th, I would start the Servassier Dennis experiment right now.
Yeah,
having him play next to Levante David and see, because Devin White has not played very well at all this year. And I think that he's been a liability at times and he's not shown up in a contract here. And to me, that's very telling. If you're not going to show up now, then when are you? Right. And so
after you get the bundle of money.
Yeah, exactly. So listen, when it comes to bundles of money and you want to make some money selling your house, you can do that with Eric Gross and the Eric Gross Group. That's right. This is the guy you want on your team for the long haul. And certainly for now, because it takes a full team effort to win a football game. It also takes a full team effort to win in real estate. The Eric Gross Group's done hundreds of transactions in this real estate market. Eric is an avid Pewter Report reader and a Tampa native. He knows this area like the back of his hand. He and his team have got the market knowledge, the top-notch communication, and the commitment to excellent service that sets them apart. Their clients are not just transactions. They're lifelong friendships. Eric's a great guy. Give him a call at 513-907-4271 or visit housesinfla.com. That's the website, housesinfla.com. Great layout, great website. You can view their inventory online. You can also find Eric and the Eric Gross Group on Facebook and Instagram at Eric Gross Group. No matter where you are in your home ownership journey, you're going to feel welcome with the Eric Gross Group, the official realtor of Pewter Report. Again, visit housesinfla.com.
That's right. And after you check out the Eric Gross Group, make sure you follow us on all of our social media on X, Facebook, Threads, and Instagram. We are at Pewter Report, and then our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got tons of content from the podcast 4 times a week, the game day show, various clips from practice, Scott's Pewter Pulse, different press conference stuff. So many different things. Leave a comment on this video as well. That helps grow our audience over at Pewter Report and Pewter Report TV. And you guys always give great participation, so would love to get some more of your opinions on this video. Please like and
also
subscribe
too,
and comment. Yeah,
Shaggy, thank you for saying hit that like button, the thumbs up. We appreciate that. Also, Shaggy, email me at sr@pewterreport.com. I need your address to send to Celsius, so you can get one of those cases that you so deserved for helping us out with some great comments the other week. So make sure that you send me an email at sr@pewterreport.com.
Yeah, do it up. We got a fun week coming up. The Bucs are back. Like, they played on Thursday. They didn't go anywhere, but it feels like it's been a while since the Bucs had a big game or anything, really. So
this is a must win. Let's just call it what it is. This is a must win. They got to stop the losing streak at 3 games. They got to get back on the winning track. This is a winnable game at Houston. It's not going to be easy. CJ Stroud does not look like a quarterback that is a rookie by any means. He's playing good football, but this is a winnable game. The Bucs need to use this extra time during this bye week, this little mini bye, to fix some stuff, and they got to get off this losing streak.
Yeah. So no podcast tomorrow. We will have a Bucs Texans preview coming up on Wednesday. So until then, for Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you on Wednesday for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.